So our Phase 1 project had three primary objectives. The first, to discover current climate change education activities at each site. Then to identify barriers and opportunities for collaborating and communicating about climate change in these 5 different regions. We've also integrated these ideas for a transformative place-based climate change education strategy, or at least that is our charge from the National Science Foundation. We did this through numerous activities. First being a preliminary or baseline survey of agency staffs and partners conducted by our external evaluator, Douglas Meyer. We also did site visits and focus groups, and there's a link embedded in this PowerPoint where you can watch a video of what those visits and focus groups looked like. Also, hopefully you've attended one of our World Cafe workshops. Nearly 400 people did from across the country in the past year. And we had a pre-workshop survey that helped us get a sense of some of the barriers and opportunities in current activities. Also, we've compiled qualitative and quantitative data about the visitors and their knowledge and concerns. In fact, we have nearly 3,000 visitor surveys and over 200 interviews, and by the time we see you in Florida, we will have more than 3,000 visitor surveys and more than 300 interviews, because this data does not include data from Florida, which will be gathered the week prior to our workshop. So Objective 1, what are some of the current activities? Across the 5 sites, there are 3 things that everyone was working on: education and class outreach. These are formal programs with teachers and local schools. Second, everywhere we've been, there have been other efforts for collaborative and informative community workshops, and both in-house and externally, about climate change. And publications, from brochures to peer-reviewed papers, we are writing and communicating about climate change through printed material. Some of the barriers and opportunities that we've seen across the board, again, this is an aggregate view of all of the sites layered together. So the first barrier, and again this appeared everywhere we were, was a lack of connection to everyday life. That climate change doesn't have personal relevancy for the audience as a barrier. The belief that the audience is apathetic or resistant to change, that they don't believe climate change is happening and they don't see it as a threat. And finally, a major barrier is that there is a lack of urgency or immediacy in the risks and impacts of climate change. At least the perception is among audiences. But there are numerous opportunities, and some of the opportunities were enforced very strong across all sites. Again, opportunities to educate early and often. The value of bringing youth into the conversation was highlighted everywhere we went. A focus on local visible changes. Again, that's a key tenet to our theoretical foundation for this project and the effort that we see moving forward in Phase 2. And finally, potential partnerships and political support as an opportunity to increase the credibility and the awareness of climate change in multiple, varied, and diverse audiences. So those are our opportunities and barriers. As far as the objectives, boom, we've got our current activities, we've got our barriers and opportunities. But what about this third piece? Trying to develop this transformative place-based strategy. Well, this really requires knowing our audience, and we've done our homework here too. Linking with the USGS research that Natalie Sexton is going to present, we have our own staff and visitor surveys. So a little bit about the staff survey. As I said, it was conducted by Douglas Meyer, and over 800 participants, about half and half from the Park Service and Fish and Wildlife, responded. And that was an email survey conducted through December of 2010 to January 2011, so just over a year ago. The visitor survey is a very traditional visitor survey format called non-random intercept sampling, and over the course of the year we've gotten nearly 3,000 responses. Pretty heavy on the national park side, but again, we're going to buttress this with USGS research to have a better understanding of refuge visitors as well. In general, the breakdown, 51% male, 49% female, the average age, 45, 87% Caucasian, 70% of our respondents, of this near 3,000, had a college degree or above. Politically, 37% Democrat, 20 Republican, 20 Independent, and the remaining chose not to respond. So that is the background on our visitor and staff surveys. And now let me show you some of the results that are relevant to creating our strategic plan on January 11th and 12th. So are the effects of climate change already seen at places? Overwhelmingly, yes. Staff say yes, and visitors also say, yeah, probably, yes, definitely. Are your visitors concerned about climate change? Well, the staff said, somewhat, slightly to somewhat. But when we asked visitors, are you concerned about climate change? They said very concerned to extremely concerned. Should the national parks and wildlife refuges be communicating about climate change? Staff said yes, visitors said yes. We're in the right place for what we need to do.